way to learn. And here's a live lesson where you'll all have a turn to solve a puzzle or follow a clue. Hear a story or song, there's so much to do. What's in store today, do you know? Open up the suitcase and away we go. The magic suitcase, what do you see? Learning and fun is waiting for me. Good morning, everyone. We're back again with another Magic Suitcase adventure. Are you ready to get stuck in to learning something new today? Me too. I can't wait to get started. We've got lots of you joining us live, which is fantastic. A big welcome to all of you. Whether you're watching live or on catch up later, thanks for coming along. Shall we do a few shout outs? Okay. I think there's probably too many to shout everyone today. What do you think? Shall I give it a go? Okay, I'll do it super fast. Listen carefully for your name. Here they come. Jaden, Eleanor, Ava and Mum. Matthew, Sophie and Sam. Mima, Aniqua, Ollie and Mum. Willow and Caden, Maisie and Toby. Peter and Lucy, Harlow and Havana. Pippa, Myla, Hannah, William, Samantha, Maya. Finley and Fluffy the Budgie. Hello, Sammy, Teddy, Callie, Maisie, Toby, Sammy, Killian, Zoe and Mum, Atlas and Maisie, Toby. Did I do you? I think I did that. And I did Atlas. Yeah, I think we've done everybody. I think I covered you all. Izzy and Annie just popped in. Well, welcome along. Shall we get started? We need to start by finding out what is inside the magic suitcase today. That gives us a clue to what we'll be finding out a bit more about today. So let's have a little look. We always have a riddle to help us find out what's inside. I wonder if we can work it out today. Here's our riddle this morning. I'm sharp at the tip, yet soft at the end. In the past, I was once a playwright's best friend. Useful to writers, but once owned by a bird. Writing hundreds of words in plays they'll be heard. I once flew high, light as the breeze. Now dipped in an inkwell, I write stories with ease. What do you think? Do you know what it is? Have a little think about that. Got a few clues there. We know it's sharp at the tip, but it's very soft at the other end. It mentions a playwright's best friend, owned by a bird, writing words in plays, dipped in an inkwell. I think we've worked it out. Lots of you suggesting in the chat that it could be a quill or a feather pen. We've got a few different suggestions. Let's have a look. Yes. Fantastic. Is this what you pictured? A quill, yes. And used by people to write stories, to write plays, to write poems, to write everything. Way back in the past, before we had pens as we know them today, yeah, this is what they used. And they'd have to dip it into an inkwell to get lots of ink in the quill, and then they'd be able to write. Fantastic. Well done if you worked that one out. So a quill. Well, I wonder why that's in the suitcase. Well, today we're going to be learning a little bit more about a playwright from quite a long time ago. We've got to go back in time. How many years? About 400 years to the time of William Shakespeare. Have we heard that name before? Who's heard the name William Shakespeare before? I bet lots of you have. I wonder if you can have a think. What do we already know about William Shakespeare? Shall we pool all of our knowledge together and see if we can come up with a few things that we already might know about him, or about the plays or the poems that he created? What do we know already? Have a little think then. Lots of you are saying yes, you've heard of William Shakespeare. And as our topic is Showtime, well, he was one of the most influential people in terms of putting on a show, in terms of creating amazing stories and plays that were performed on stage. Yes, Mima, he wrote plays, made lots of famous quotes. So lots of quotes we get from Shakespeare, don't we? And a few sayings and things that pop up in everyday life, actually written by Shakespeare. Oh, and we'll play a game using some of those later. Let's have a look. Matthew says he wrote Midsummer Night's Dream. Spot on, Matthew. That was one of his plays, one of my favourites. Finley's got another one, Romeo and Juliet. Fantastic. Willow said Midsummer Night's Dream too, which has fairies in it, Willow. Yes, I think that's why it's my favourite. Maya, you're spot on. He writes plays. Fantastic. Famous quotes. Romeo and Juliet is popping up again. Yes, so we know a little bit about him already. Plays like Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, The Tempest, brilliant. And Midsummer Night's Dream is popping up again. That seems to be quite a well-known one. There's definitely some of his plays that are more well-known than others. So shall we find out a little bit more about him? There he is, all about William Shakespeare. So who on earth was he? Well, William Shakespeare, let's go all the way back to 1564. And he was born in Stratford-upon-Avon in England. Anne Hathaway. On November the 28th in 1582, at the age of just 18, William married Anne Hathaway. She was 26 years old when they got married. They had a baby called Susanna in 1583, and 2 years later, Anne gave birth to twins, a boy called Hamet and a girl called Judith. Sadly, at the age of 11, Hamet died, and we can, like a lot of people did in those days, they didn't have the medicine and the medical care that we have now. We can see a picture of them there in their home. But Shakespeare wasn't content with living just in Stratford-upon-Avon. The excitement of London was beckoning, and in the mid-1580s, it's thought that William set off to London. When he arrived in the capital city, some historians believe that he worked as a horse attendant at some of London's theatres. He didn't straight away become a super famous playwright. Nobody knew who he was when he first arrived. But by 1592, it didn't take him long, he was earning money as an actor and a playwright, and he used to perform in plays. The Lord Chamberlain's Men. This was an acting company that William became a managing partner of. So he clubbed together with a few other actors. They set up their own company. The name was changed to the King's Men after King James I was crowned, the new King of England. And by now, he was beginning to sell some of his written work. So not only was he acting, but he was starting to write plays too. In 1597, Shakespeare was beginning to earn a lot of money, so he bought the second largest house in his hometown of Stratford. However, because it took about 4 days to get from London to Stratford, think about how they would have done that journey back in those days. They could have just hopped on a train or a coach or in the car. So, yeah, they had to go by horse and cart or by carriage, and it would take 4 days to make that journey back to his family. William only ever went home during the 40 days of Lent when the theatres were closed. So he was so committed to what he was doing in London, all his work in the theatres. The only time he ever went home was when the theatres actually closed. Right, the Globe. And there it is. William and his business partners decided to build their own theatre. They built the Globe by the River Thames in London. Isn't it a magnificent building? It's amazing, isn't it? Shakespeare's plays. Shakespeare wrote all sorts of different plays, and we'll talk about it. Well, we talked a little bit last week, didn't we, actually, guys, about different types of plays. Do you remember we were talking about comedies and tragedies and historical plays? And he wrote all sorts of different plays. Some were really funny and they're intended to make the audience laugh. Others were really tragic. All sorts of different ones. He acted in several of his plays as well in front of Queen Elizabeth I, who was the monarch at the time. He often included themes of religion, love, and the monarchy. Both past and current monarchy current monarchy were explored in his plays. Fantastic. Right then. Okay, so we found out a little bit more about him. I think we should go back and revisit that theatre that he built. I'd definitely like to find out some more about that. I'd love to see what it's like inside too. Let's find out more together about the Globe Theatre.
Let's go inside the Globe Theatre. The year was 1599 and Queen Elizabeth I was on the throne. Shakespeare was busy creating plays with his acting company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men, and an opportunity came to buy a share of a theatre. The company decided to club together to pay for the land and the building. The Globe Theatre. The theatre was round in shape and made mostly out of wood. It had a thatched roof around the outside but was open in the middle to allow light in for the plays to be seen. The Globe used flags to tell people what kind of play was showing: red for history, white for comedy, and blue for tragedy. Going to the theatre was a popular pastime for all. But what was it like inside the Globe? Let's take a look inside. The 3-storey seating area was around the edges of the building, underneath the roof. The stage, known as an apron stage, jutted out into the audience. In front of it was the pit, where the groundlings would have stood. There was no scenery on the stage, but there were special effects, such as cannons firing and the sound of wind blowing. In 1613, disaster struck, and during a performance, a prop cannon was misfired, causing the thatched roof to catch fire. It only took 2 hours for the entire building to be destroyed, and amazingly, no one was harmed. But the Globe was rebuilt immediately, opening again within a year. Many of Shakespeare's plays were written for the Globe, and he often performed in them himself, although he didn't take the lead role as he was busy directing the other actors. The Globe was forced to close in 1642 when the Puritans banned all forms of theatre. But the story of the Globe Theatre doesn't end there. Let's fast forward to the 1980s. When archaeologists found the foundations of the original Globe Theatre, they realised that although originally people thought the building was round, it was actually a 20-sided polygon shape. And in the 1990s, a reconstruction of the Globe was built close to where it originally stood. You can visit today and watch plays just like in Shakespeare's day.
Amazing, eh? And I've been lucky enough to visit the Globe. I wonder if any of you have been there. It is amazing, and it looks exactly like in those pictures. And you really get a sense of what it must have been like. If it rained, they just carried on. Everybody got wet unless you could afford one of those seats around the edge, which were under the roof. And you would not have seats in that middle bit down at the bottom. You stand up to watch the plays, and the audience would often get very involved in what's going on stage. There'd be lots of commotion going on when dramatic things happened, and they'd call out to the performers on stage to try and warn them of something that's going on. So it was a very kind of interactive and loud and busy experience. It must have been amazing, but people loved it. And Shakespeare's plays were so popular. And we've got some comments in the chat saying just that. Harlow said that he made up lots of words and phrases that we still use today. Some of you have given some examples. Myla says, he gave us the quote, "a wild goose chase." Have you ever heard that? If If you've got a sort of complicated journey or you're trying to find things, you might say, we're going on a wild goose chase, or it's like a wild goose chase. In my heart of hearts was another Shakespeare quote. Well done. Right. Yeah, really, it is huge, isn't it, that theatre? Some of you saying, fantastic. Right then, I think time for a game, don't you? I wonder if then we can name, we've named a few already, haven't we? Some Shakespeare plays. Well, for this game, you need to spot the ones that might be written by Shakespeare and those that are not Shakespeare. Let's play That's Not My Play.
Let's play That's Not My Play. We'll see some titles from famous plays. The question is, did Shakespeare write them? If you think Shakespeare wrote it, shout out yes. If not, shout out, that's not my play. Romeo and Juliet. Did Shakespeare write it? Yes. The Tempest. What do you think? Yes, that's a Shakespeare play. Here's your next one. The Cherry Orchard. Did Shakespeare write this? That's not my play. The Cherry Orchard was by Anton Chekhov. Antony and Cleopatra. Did Shakespeare write this? Yes, he did. Let's try another. Waiting for Godot. That's not my play. It was written by Samuel Beckett. How about the America play? Is this by Shakespeare? That's not my play. It's by Susan Laurie Parks. Let's try another, shall we? Macbeth. Yes, Shakespeare wrote that. Here comes your next one. Look Back in Anger. What do you think? That's not my play. It's written by John Osborne. Much Ado About Nothing. Shakespeare or not? Yes. And our last one, All's Well That Ends Well. Is this a Shakespeare play? Yes, he did write this. Well done, everyone.
Fantastic, guys, you were guessing away there. I could see it in the chat. Were there some that you definitely knew that was definitely Shakespeare's play? Maybe some that you definitely thought, nah, there's no way it was. We did really well there. Well done for having a go. Right then, everybody, it's that time. It's time to open the mystery case. We always have a challenge inside, and today's challenge is a tricky one. I wonder what it is.
The mystery case has a challenge inside. There's nowhere to run and no place to hide. We'll take on this challenge. How hard can it be? Open the suitcase and we'll see. Is it Shakespeare or Fakespeare?
Okay, we're going to play Who Said This? Shakespeare or Fakespeare? Was this written by Shakespeare or was it not? I'm going to show you some different lines, and they will either be from a Shakespeare play or they'll be from a song which was written really recently in like a pop song in our time. Let's have a look at the first one. So tell me if you think this is Shakespeare or Fakespeare. Why then can one desire too much of a good thing? Why then can one desire too much of a good thing? Do you think that that was written by Shakespeare, or do you think that's from a song? A recent song. What do you think? Shakespeare or Fakespeare? What are we going for? And the thing about this game is if you're not sure, you can just have a guess. Let's see. What do you think? Oh, we're really divided in the chat. Oh, It's too close to call. I reckon we're 50-50 with some people saying fake, some people saying Shakespeare. It was written by Shakespeare. And too much of a good thing. There we go. Another phrase that we kind of use again, don't we? Right, let's try this one then, guys. Your faithless love's the only hoax I believe in. Your faithless love's the only hoax I believe in. Do you think that's Shakespeare? Or is that just from a song? What do you think? It's tricky, isn't it? Your faithless love's the only hoax I believe in. What are we going for? We're leaning more towards Shakespeare this time, I think. Couple of people think it's fake. Should we see? It wasn't written by Shakespeare. Look who wrote that. Taylor Swift. Were some of you fooled by that one? Let's try another. Everything you stand for turns on you to spite you. What do you think? Shakespeare or Fakespeare? Everything you stand for turns on you to spite you. What do you think? Oh, I see in the chat someone guessed that last one knew it was Taylor Swift. Right, what do we think? We're divided again. Mostly we're going for Shakespeare. Shall we see? Oh, it wasn't Shakespeare. It was written by Eminem. Let's try another. I pray you do not fall in love with me. That one. What do you think? I pray you do not fall in love with me. This is a tricky one. What do you think? Is that in a song? Or is that written by Shakespeare? What do you reckon? There's a lot of songs about love, but Shakespeare wrote a lot of plays about love. Oh, it's tricky. Shall we find out the answer? It was Shakespeare. Well done if you went for that one. Let's try this one. I used to float. Now I just fall down. I used to know, but I'm not sure now. I used to float. Now I just fall down. I used to know, but I'm not sure now. What do you reckon? Are we more certain this time? I'm looking at the chat, seeing what we're going for. We're saying it's fake. Do some of you recognize it? It is fake. It's Billie Eilish. Do you recognize that? It's very hard to say it and not sing it. I used to float. Now I just fall down. Was anyone singing that? Okay, let's try another. Stick or twist. The choice is yours. Hit or miss. What's mine is yours. What do you think about that one? Stick or twist. The choice is yours. Hit or miss. What's mine is yours. Are we going with Shakespeare for this one? Or is it fake? Am I just teasing you with another song lyric? What do you think? We're again divided. We've got a few people thinking it might be Shakespeare, some definitely not. The moment of truth. It wasn't Shakespeare. It was Kylie Minogue. Let's try this one. Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. Well, could be a clue there. I mean, we know Shakespeare wrote about a lot of monarchs and kings and queens, but what do you think? Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. What are we going for with this one? Is it Shakespeare? Is it Fakespeare? Lots saying Shakespeare this time. Yes, that one was Shakespeare. Well done. Wow, I think we did pretty well. I told you it was a tricky one today, that challenge, but quite good fun having a guess, isn't it? Right then, everyone, I think it's time for our activity. It's time to press that button and find out what our activity is going to be today. A game, a puzzle, a story, or a song? Should we find out?
A new activity, which one will it be? Press the button and we'll see. A game, a puzzle, story or song. Whatever it is, we can't go wrong. Learning together as we play. Learning new things every day. What will it be today? It's a story.
It's a story. We haven't had a story for a little while. So I thought, well, as we're looking at Shakespeare, one of the greatest storytellers of all time, we should probably hear one of his stories that he created. And it's one that we've mentioned already before in our session, one that a few of you had heard of. Let's listen to the story of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Midsummer Night's Dream, a comedy by William Shakespeare. Who are the characters we meet? Theseus, Hermia, Helena, Lysander, Demetrius, Oberon, Titania, Puck, and Bottom. The story takes place in Athens, Greece. We're in the courtroom of Duke Theseus. Hermia is brought to court by her father Aegeus because he wants her to marry Demetrius. But she doesn't want to marry him. Instead, she wants to marry a poet called Lysander. Duke Theseus tells her that she has to do what her father says. Hermia cannot bear to marry Demetrius, so she and Lysander run away to the woods to make a plan. While they're in the woods, they meet Helena, who is sad because she actually loves Demetrius. Hermia wishes that Demetrius loved Helena so they could get married and leave her and Lysander to be free together. Meanwhile, the fairies who also live in the woods are having their own problems. Queen Titania has made Oberon, the king of the fairies, jealous and angry as she is taking care of a little boy, and Oberon wants the boy to be his servant. Titania won't let Oberon have the boy as a slave, so Oberon decides to trick Titania. He gets his helper, Puck, to find the magic flower that has special powers to make people fall in love with the first thing they see. He wants to use it on Titania. That night in the woods, Hermia and Lysander are still trying to run away. Demetrius chases them. Helena chases Demetrius, trying to get him to love her. Oberon sees Demetrius being horrid to Helena and plans to use the special flower on Demetrius to make him love Helena. On the same night, in another part of the woods, a group of workers are rehearsing a play for Duke Theseus's wedding day. It all gets very silly. Bottom is the funniest of them all and wants to play all the parts. Puck sees him and thinks it would be funny to use the flower to make Queen Titania fall in love with Bottom. The next thing we know is that Puck has found Titania sleeping and drops the flower juice on her. Just before he did this, he also thought it would be really funny to turn Bottom's head into a donkey's head. Just as planned, Titania woke, and the first thing she sees is Bottom and falls in love with him straight away. Puck also finds sleeping Hermia and Lysander on the way back to King Oberon. Puck gives the flower juice to Lysander, thinking he needs it, but it's the wrong person. When Lysander awakes, he sees Helena and falls in love with her. Uh-oh, now everything is a mess. Queen Titania loves Bottom and he has a donkey's head. Lysander loves Helena and not Hermia. Helena is confused. Hermia is outraged and thinks Helena has stolen her man. Puck tries to make everything better using the flower juice on Demetrius, and he also falls in love with Helena. Hermia is angry. Hermia has a fight with Helena. King Oberon makes Puck stay up all night to sort out the mess. Finally, the next morning, things seemed to be back as everyone wanted. Lysander loves Hermia. Demetrius loves Helena. Oberon reverses the spell on Titania and Bottom. Oberon and Titania aren't arguing anymore. And Puck apologises. Sorry. The end of a rather confusing and funny play.
Wow. Well, did you manage to follow all of that? It's very confusing, isn't it? Wowzers. It hurt my brain. All those different muddlings of different people loving each other. Oh, but it all was sorted in the end. I think why I love that play is because of the setting, that it all happens in this kind of magical wood where fairies and mythical creatures can live. And I love the magic of it, that this flower is responsible for all of that confusion. So maybe that could lead us into our activity that we're going to do this week. So keep the Midsummer Night's Dream in mind. But before we do that, shall we take a look at what you designed last week for us to share? We were looking at the inside the theatre last week. And do you remember you created a beautiful backdrop and scenery for your play? And it could have been a play that maybe you've seen before. It could have been a story that you'd like to see performed on stage, or a favourite film perhaps, or one just from your imagination. And you came up with so many different ideas. Let's take a look at them. Well done. Bravo. Absolutely fantastic. I want to go and see all of those plays. The settings look amazing. Well, time for a challenge this week, and I've got a couple to share with you. We're going to explore the Midsummer Night's Dream through some picture creation. Let's have a little look. So I've put two different resources in our link, which you can find below or above this video, to grab hold of these. I thought we could do some colour in, or create a picture of the Midsummer Night's Dream. So you can pick one of these colourings to do. There's one that is a picture showing all of the characters, and there's some mindful colouring as well, which has got a little bit more detail on it, and gives some background scenes as well. So feel free to pick and choose whatever you fancy doing from those two, or alternatively, as I said, create your own picture. So pick a character perhaps from A Midsummer Night's Dream, and you could draw that, you could create that character, show me what their costume would be like. So have a little go at that this week, and I can't wait to see what you create. I think my favourite character in that, it's probably, I was going to say Puck because I quite like how cheeky he is, but I think I'd quite like to draw Titania, the Queen of the Fairies, or maybe Oberon. Oh, I don't know. It's a tricky one. So have a look at that this week, and remember to look out for our sharing post in our Facebook group. Drop them in there, and we'll add them to our sharing video for this week. Oh, Ollie and Edward, you're going to draw Bottom, are you? Fantastic. Oh, and maybe Puck. Oh, brilliant. I look forward to seeing all of these. Well, that wraps things up for today. I've had a lovely time with you all learning a bit more about Shakespeare. And remember, our live sessions can be a springboard to even more learning. So you can go off and find out even more about Shakespeare and what theatre was like in all those years ago. Well, I've had a lovely time. I hope you have too. And I'll see you all again next week for another Magic Suitcase adventure. See you soon, everyone. Bye.